Okay, this lecture, short lecture, is about strategic groups, which is again one of the Michael Porter's concepts. Strategic groups reference to homogeneous groups of companies using similar strategies. And the first picture here in the first slide describes the different layers from macro to micro. So the macro referring to broader macro environment. We talked about scenarios and these pestle, different types of structural drivers or structural forces that are driving the business environment and companies operating in business environment. Also those forces in place within the industry or sector, in food industry, for instance. Then the layer of ecosystems and competitors, direct competitors. And here, the strategic groups, homogeneous companies using homogeneous strategies. And then, of course, the customer markets and the capabilities within the organization. Of course, this could be split into two, so that those factors that exist within the company, meaning the factors covered by the resource-based view, and then those factors that are external to the company, external to the firm, beyond the firm boundaries, such as the competitive factors, for instance. So external and internal. But the picture here details and explains the macro to micro a little bit more detailed than division into two. So strategic groups are a group of firms in an industry following the same or similar strategy along the strategic dimensions. And we go through the strategic dimensions in the next slide. And this is from Porter's book, Competitive Advantage, 1980s. All the firms within a sub-industry are not direct competitors, but an industry can be divided into strategic groups. So strategic group is a concept to understand how any industry is divided into smaller groups using similar strategies. Not all companies within the industry are competitors with each other, not even when they are operating in and doing business in using similar products or services, similar types of products or services. We go through that in the next slide. To position against other firms and to develop unique value proposition, a firm should identify which strategic group it belongs to. So this is a way to understand how the industry is split into smaller groups and what is the structure of any industry. Industry is still a very broad concept. Value system is one way to understand the industry structure. Strategic group as a concept and as a tool is another way to understand the structure within the industry. Let's look at the characteristics. So these are the items, the measures or the characteristics to understand how to form strategic groups. So organizations differ in terms of characteristics related to scope of activities, resource commitments. In terms of scope of activities, there are 4 different criteria to understand how the industry can be divided into groups. Extent of product or service diversity. So to what extent companies are offering different types of products or services. Extent of diversity. So how broad is the scope of offerings? Very narrow scope is one type of strategy. Very broad scope with a lot of variety in terms of offerings is another type of strategy. Extent of geographical coverage, so geographical scope. Are we focusing on some very specific local area, a little bit broader region, country, or are we focusing on very broad scope of geographical markets? Obviously, very local and large global manufacturers are operating in different strategic groups. Doesn't mean that companies from other groups can't create a threat to the firm, but it means that in any case they have the opportunity, or they are likely to be following, in definition, they are following different types of strategies. And that's something that is important to understand. Not all companies are using similar types of strategies within the certain product industry or certain product group, but they vary. So one of the questions is that how they vary, and these are answers to that question. Number of market segments served. So what is the variety of market segments that these competitors are serving? Are they serving only one very specific niche market, or are they serving multiple different market segments, or perhaps all the segments? Very different types of, again, very different types of strategies. And what are the distribution channels they use? Are they focusing on internet and e-commerce as a channel, perhaps on retail, or have they outsourced their market channels, or are they perhaps using direct sales? The channel strategy and strategies vary. And then resource commitments, resource allocations of the firms vary. The extent of brands, how many brands the companies have, are they using one brand, or are they using multiple or very wide range of brands? Marketing effort, what is the amount of, or the scale of advertising budget, spread size of sales force, etc. So the scope of sales and marketing activities. Extent of vertical integration, so the scope of make or buy decisions, what the companies are outsourcing and what they are doing by themselves. Is one way to understand the strategy of a firm. Some companies do many of the activities by themselves, so they are utilizing very broad level, to large extent, vertical integration as a strategy, and then other companies are utilizing outsourcing to large extent. So they are outsourcing multiple operations and using that sort of opposite strategy. And that obviously has its impacts on adaptation, adaptive capabilities, agility perhaps, but also of course on costs. Outsourcing often leads or results from more standardized strategies than vertical integration. Vertical integration is used when adaptation and agility is needed, and often it has many things, has relation to customization strategies. Product or service quality, lower quality, lower cost, higher quality, higher cost, differentiate quality as a differentiating factors, very different types of strategies. Technological leadership, so separately technological followers and then separately those which are at the leading edge of technological development and innovation. And then small companies and large companies, which is kind of an obvious, let's say, small local players versus large global players, obviously different segments, different strategic groups. This is an example. This is now a demonstration of strategic grouping. So when you try to understand how strategic groups can be splitted and divided within an industry, this is one way of describing as an example. So an example from a car industry analysis of strategic groups. So 4 different groupings with 2-dimensional scales to see that what types of criteria from the criteria in the previous page can capture the variety in the industry. So in the top left corner, we have the number of products and technological leadership. So large number of products versus small number of products. Followers versus leaders. So Mercedes-Benz, large number of products and definitely a technological follower. Subaru, lower number of products and technological follower instead of leader. On the top right corner, number of brands, large, small, quality experience, top quality, weak quality. And again, Volkswagen Group separates from Nissan, Renault, or Fiat Chrysler, or perhaps Koenigsegg and Toyota. So very different types of strategies. And then number of products, broad, narrow, number of markets, a few markets served, large scope of markets served. Level of standardization based on customization or mass producers, and then outsourcers versus vertically integrated companies. So this is kind of the first preliminary understanding of the strategic groups. Important to see that industry can be split into these smaller strategic groups. Strategic groups offer one way to understand how industries can be structured, and we use the certain criteria to understand the groupings, understand how the group the industry, and then into smaller groups, and then companies into smaller groups, and then we use the the car industry as an example. So this is a very brief explanation of strategic groups and how they can be used as a tool to understand the structure of an industry. Thank you.